I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. Will the Secretary please call roll?
Assemblyman DeLong.
Present.
Assemblywoman Dickman. Here. Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Gonzalez. She was here. Assemblyman Hibbets.
Here.
Assemblyman MacArthur.
Here.
Assemblywoman Brittany Miller. Here. Assemblyman C.H. Miller.
Present.
Assemblywoman Monroe Marino.
Here.
Assemblywoman Newby.
Here.
Assemblyman Yeager. Chair Gorlow.
And I am here. Thank you very much. Please mark the members present when they arrive. Welcome, everyone, to Carson City, maybe Vegas. Today, we're going to hear Assembly Bill 104, and we're also going to have a few introduction of committee BDRs. But before we begin, we have our housekeeping rules, so let's please make sure all of our electronic devices are silenced. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to our committee secretary. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and slowly state and spell your name for the record. Please also state whether you represent a group or an organization, then turn off the microphone each time you are done speaking. There are hard copies of the meeting materials available for members of the public. Electronic copies should have been submitted to our committee manager yesterday. Members of the public may also access electronic copies of materials on the Nevada Legislature's website. We do expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with another person's position. Let me remind people, we do not call out members, and basically be nice. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents, so please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the meeting. With that, we will get started. I will now open the hearing for Assembly Bill 104 for Assemblywoman Dickman. This bill revises provisions governing the submission of legislative measures for city charters. Thank you very much, and proceed when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Gorlow, Vice Chair Miller, and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Assemblywoman Jill Dickman, and I represent District 31, which is mostly Sparks, parts of Reno. Today I'm presenting Assembly Bill 104 for your consideration. This bill aims to offer more flexibility for Nevada's incorporated cities to submit legislation to amend their charters. Currently, if a city wishes to amend its charter, they must either use one of their allotted BDRs or look for a sponsor to submit the bill on their behalf. This can create several challenges for cities, especially those that are only allowed one BDR per legislative session. Those cities include my own hometown, the city of Sparks, as well as Carson City, Elko, Carlin, Boulder City, Caliente, Mesquite, Wells, and Yerington. Cities may also struggle to find a sponsor at times due to the required charter review process prescribed by the legislature within the city charters. Although this process allows cities to thoroughly vet proposed changes to their charter, it also creates certain time constraints. And as you know, ideas for individual legislative bills, or BDRs, come from many different constituents, and those spots fill up pretty quickly. If cities have any other legislative priority other than their charter, they may be put in a situation where they must choose and possibly wait another 2 years for one or the other. So this is probably the simplest bill any of us will hear this session, maybe. Section 1, subsection 6 of AB 104 simply allows cities to have an additional BDR solely for the purpose of amending their charters. They would only be able to use this additional BDR if the change has gone through their regular review and approval process, and as always, they will have to submit proof to the LCB regarding that approval from their governing body in order to submit the BDR. I believe that if cities were given this option to amend their charters, it will allow them to have a more thorough and serious discussion about legislative priorities that aim to help the people that they serve. And as we all know, their constituents are our constituents, and I believe it's our duty to make sure their voice is being heard. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you might have at this point.
Thank you very much. Committee, do we have any questions? Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you, Assemblyman, for your presentation. Just one quick question: have you got any feedback from any of the municipalities and the cities as to what their thoughts are on this measure? Thank you.
Well, certainly my city is very supportive of this. Could I ask Mr. Wood to come up here? He's represents the city of Carson, so he could confirm that as well.
Stephen Wood, for the record, representing Carson City and the Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities, and I was going to testify in support of the bill, but yes, we are supportive of this measure. Yeah.
Questions from any other committee members? I have one. How many cities would be considered a special charter?
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Jill Dickman, for the record. I believe it's 9, the ones that I named. It'd be Sparks, Carson City, Elko, Carlin, Boulder City, Caliente, Wells, and Yerington. What is North Las Vegas? Is it? Yes. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I forgot that one. But you know, I'm from the north.
That's quite okay.
Madam Chair, I'm very hurt that she forgot my city.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
And she sits next to you.
Right? Apologies.
Well, another quick question. How often do you think something like this would be utilized?
That's pretty hard to say. And I will tell you, there's been some discussions about an amendment, and such as maybe restricting this to every other session possibly, or maybe limiting the number of times it could be used over maybe a 10-year period. And so the stakeholders, the people that want this bill, are open to that. And so I would leave that to the discretion of this committee, if that's what you think would be better. I mean, otherwise we could use it every session if we don't do that. And do I see this being used a lot? No. But it would certainly be a good option for cities that have things come up. You know, it's like, according to this, I have this, the BDR submission form that they have to use. And it's from LCB. And like, they would have had to submit a bill draft by November 16th of 2022 for this session. So if they were in the midst of charter change discussions, but they had another issue they had to deal with, you know, they'd have to make that decision, and maybe a rush decision.
Thank you. Do committee members have any other questions? Please go ahead, Assemblywoman.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Along those lines, I actually was lobbying for a municipality when these when the number of bills were restricted. We were very unhappy. But these bills are required in subsection 7, requires them to be pre-filed like the rest of the bills. And so this charter bill would have to be submitted around the same time as all of the rest of their bills. Does that leave enough time for the charter committees to do their work, in your estimation?
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Jill Dickman, for the record. I believe that it does, because they would know their issues during their charter committee hearings. And rather than have to maybe decide between the charter issue and the other issue, they would probably be prepared, but they could maybe do two things that they want to do and not have to choose one over the other.
Did you have any follow-up? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm full of them. I've got another one.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about what kind of charter changes one of these municipalities might have a BDR for?
Well, I think a couple sessions ago, there was one that would, so Sparks city attorney is elected, and they wanted to change the charter to make them appointed. So they had to obviously come to the legislature to ask that. And from my point of view, it was good that bill was defeated because most of my constituents think they should be able to elect their city attorney. So, but that would be, we've probably not in Sparks done a charter change in quite a while. So I don't know, friend? Anything you could say about Carson?
Stephen Wood for the record. So the charter serves as essentially the constitution for a city, right? Those changes, so Carson City, for instance, has a charter bill, SB 16, on the Senate side, excuse me, that deals with several different chapters of our charter, including the realignment of ward boundaries after a census. It includes the mayor pro tem assuming the role of mayor in the event of a vacancy. There are many, many different facets of city government that a charter governs, from ordinance process to duties of specific offices to sometimes hours that offices are open. They're very broad documents that govern a lot of the intricacies that go into governing a city. So I think that this bill will allow us some flexibility when we have to make changes. As we know, things change. The Carson City Charter was adopted in the 1960s, and things have changed since then. So we need to come to you to request those changes and have those discussions. And as the Assemblywoman pointed out, sometimes it's hard to choose those priorities. So we appreciate this bill. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm done with my questions, but does anyone else have questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. We will move on to testimony and support. You want to just stay there? Before we have you and anyone else in Carson City that'd like to testify in support, I do want to give the phone number out for anyone on the phone who would like to call in. That number is 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 848-1440-1932. With that, we'll take testimony and support.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stephen Wood again for the record, representing the Nevada League of Cities and Carson City. Both the League of Cities and Carson City and the Board of Supervisors took official action today, actually, to support Assembly Bill 104. As the bill sponsor noted, there are 9 incorporated cities in Nevada that are only allocated 1 BDR per regular legislative session. When these cities need to come before the legislature to amend their charters, this limitation can put them in somewhat of a tight spot, especially if they have other needs that require the legislature's attention. Speaking on behalf of Carson City, I know I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. The Carson City Charter Review Committee and the Board of Supervisors approved what is now SB 16, which revises various sections of the Carson City Charter. This bill was submitted as the 1 BDR that the city has for this legislative session. Although the city chose to prioritize those charter amendments this session, the limitation that was discussed during the presentation today prevented the city from having a more thorough discussion around other potential changes to the NRS that would benefit the residents of Carson City. Again, on behalf of both the League of Cities and Carson City, I would like to thank the committee for hearing the bill and the sponsor for carrying it, and we support AB 104.
Thank you very much. You may go ahead when you're ready.
Nick Ciccone, City of Reno Legislative Relations Program Manager. We just wanted to thank the sponsor for this bill and this measure. Each year, every 2 years, our charter committee does have to convene to look at what kind of changes we would like to see to our charter. So I think that this bill, in addition to the 2 BDRs that the City of Reno is allocated based on population side, will empower our citizens and our charter committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Hillerby on behalf of the City of Sparks. Also want to add our voice of support and thank the sponsor for bringing the bill forward. I will provide a little information to the committee on an earlier question. The City of Sparks actually used a bill last session to amend the city charter, and it was to bring the city charter into compliance with recent election law changes at the state of Nevada. Because the charter is separate, we needed to do that to make that consistent. Those changes involved how, depending on how many candidates they appear on the primary or the general election ballot, and the other was to clarify that you did not take office at the next meeting, you take office at the meeting next following when the vote was canvassed. So those a high-level overview of the changes we made in the city charter as a result of legislation last time. So again, we would certainly appreciate the opportunity if there were other items that the city needed to pursue that we would also help the hardworking citizens on the charter committee by being able to bring their bill draft request forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in Carson City who would like to provide testimony and support? Seeing none. Las Vegas? Seeing none. BPS, do we have anyone on the telephone?
Chair, the line is open and working, but we have no callers for support at this time.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear testimony in opposition. Is there anyone in Carson City who would like to come up to the table in opposition? Okay, seeing none. Las Vegas? Seeing none. BPS, do we have anyone on telephone in opposition?
Thank you, Chair. The line is open and working, but we have no callers in opposition.
Okay, thank you very much. Last, we will have anyone testifying in neutral. So in Carson City? Seeing none. Las Vegas? Nope. BPS, how about on the telephone?
Thank you, Chair. The line is open and working, but we have no callers at this time for neutral.
Thank you very much. Assemblywoman, would you like to make some final comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jill Dickman for the record. I'm just most grateful to the committee for the opportunity to present this bill. I thank you on behalf of the cities who do their best to serve our constituents, and I hope for your positive consideration. And one final comment, I want to humbly apologize to Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. That was a terrible oversight. I'm so sorry, T.H. Miller. Okay, you guys have to take me to Vegas and give me a tour.
I think you have several hosts to make sure that that happens, but thank you very much, Assemblywoman. And with that, I will close the hearing on AB 104. Next, we have a few committee BDR introductions. As a reminder to members, a vote in favor of introducing a BDR does not imply a commitment to support the measure later. All this action does is allow the BDR to become a bill and enter the legislative hearing process. We will start with a BDR 24-365. This measure was requested by the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections and revises provisions relating to elections. I will entertain a motion to introduce BDR 24-365.
So moved.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Miller. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno. Sorry, I always use your first name. It like all flows together. Any discussion on the moment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we have BDR 17-366. This measure was requested by the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections and revises provisions relating to legislative affairs. I will entertain a motion to introduce BDR 17-366.
So moved.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Miller, and I have a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll now move on to our last agenda item, which is public comment. Each person has 2 minutes to provide testimony. Written public comment may also be submitted to the committee up to 24 hours after the meeting. As a reminder, when testifying, please turn on the microphone and slowly state and spell your name for the record. Please also state whether you represent a group or an organization, then turn off the microphone each time you're done speaking. Is there anyone who'd like to give public comment in Carson City? Seeing none. Las Vegas? Seeing none. BPS, do we have anyone on the telephone?
Chair, the line is open and working, but we have no callers at this time.
Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. But before we adjourn, are there any comments from the members? Okay, none. All right, our next meeting will be Tuesday, March 7th at 4 p.m. And seeing no further business, the meeting is adjourned.